Hello again everyone, thank you for visiting my channel. Today I'm going to look back at two World Trade Fairs, or Expos, that were hosted by Chicago in the late 19th century and early 20th century. In doing so, I believe more light can be shed upon the efforts of a familiar character in his mockery and imitation of our Lord and Saviour Jesus Christ. It would seem the mockery of Arcturus, the Neo-Boetes, began at least 90 years ago. Arcturus, Electrifying Chicago. World's Columbian Exposition. The World's Columbian Exposition, also known as the Chicago World's Fair, was a World's Fair held in Chicago in 1893 to celebrate the 400th anniversary of Christopher Columbus's arrival in the New World in 1492. The centerpiece of the fair, held in Jackson Park, was a large water pool representing the voyage Columbus took to the New World. Chicago had won the right to host the fair over several other cities, including New York City, Washington, D.C., and St. Louis. The exposition was an influential social and cultural event and had a profound effect on American architecture, the arts, American industrial optimism, and Chicago's image. Jackson Park was the future home of the Obama Presidential Center. The layout of the Chicago Columbian Exposition was, in large part, designed by John Wellborn Root, Daniel Burnham, Frederick Law Olmsted, and Charles B. Atwood. It was the prototype of what Burnham and his colleagues thought a city should be. It was designed to follow Beaux Arts principles of design, namely neoclassical architecture principles based on symmetry, balance, and splendor. The color of the material generally used to cover the building's facades, white stuff, gave the fairgrounds its nickname, the White City. Many prominent architects designed its 14 great buildings. Artists and musicians were featured in exhibits, and many also made depictions of works of art inspired by the exposition. The exposition covered 690 acres, 2.8 kilometers squared, featuring nearly 200 new, but deliberately temporary, buildings of predominantly neoclassical architecture, canals and lagoons, and people and cultures from 46 countries. More than 27 million people attended the exposition during its 6-month run. Its scale and grandeur far exceeded the other world fairs, and it became a symbol of emerging American exceptionalism, much in the same way that the Great Exhibition became a symbol of the Victorian-era United Kingdom. Dedication ceremonies for the fair were held on October 21st, 1892, but the fairgrounds were not actually opened to the public until May 1st, 1893. The fair continued until October 30th, 1893. In addition to recognizing the 400th anniversary of the discovery of the New World from the European perspective, the fair also served to show the world that Chicago had risen from the ashes of the Great Chicago Fire, which had destroyed much of the city in 1871. On October 9, 1893, the day designated as Chicago Day, the fair set a world record for outdoor event attendance, drawing 751,026 people. The debt for the fair was soon paid off with a check of $1.5 million, equivalent to $48.9 million in 2022. Chicago has commemorated the fair with one of the stars on its municipal flag. I've attached pictures here from 1893. I find it very telling that an obelisk was erected for this exposition. For Egyptians, the obelisk was a reverential monument commemorating the dead, representing their kings and honoring their gods. These monuments were representational in both structure and arrangement, serving as monuments with complete structure of understanding. In Egyptian mythology, the obelisk symbolized the sun god Ra, and during the religious reformation of Akhenaten, it was said to have been a petrified ray of the Aten, the sun disk. It's also interesting to see a Ferris wheel. The Ferris wheel was Chicago's answer to the Eiffel Tower, which was constructed for the 1889 World's Fair held in Paris. The 1933 Century of Progress exposition featured the Sky Ride, shown later. As I have mentioned both Obama and Akhenaten already, in the top left I have included a composite picture. Some believe Obama to be a clone of Akhenaten. I will leave you to judge for yourself. I've also displayed two tickets from 1893, the first showing the Freemasonic Phoenix, also shown in the bottom left, and the second displaying the Statue of Liberty. And here is a ticket from the 1933 Century of Progress exposition, which I will turn to shortly. This ticket is embedded into the Wikipedia page. It is interesting to note, of all the tickets, one was found showing Gate 44 and Section 44. Also of note is the symbol shown between the 19 and the 33 at the bottom of the ticket. I will discuss these in the next slide. So here we once again reference Obama wearing number 44 on the cuff of his jacket, referencing his being the 44th President of the United States. What strikes me, however, is the remarkable similarity between the 1933 logo on the left and both the Obama-Biden 2008 presidential campaign logo on the right and the Obama Foundation logo at the bottom. We seem to have a circle or a spinning ball and three circular lines. I will now turn to the Oval Office rug, or more specifically, the display of the Presidential Seal of the United States. According to the requirements established by Eisenhower in 1960, the seal's design should have a blue background and also that the stars should be white. In comparing the seal on the left, that of George W. Bush, to Obama's on the right, we can see that Obama has inverted the background and also the stars to a blue or a dark grey colour. And when comparing the eagle, as shown in the top right corner, we can see Obama's seal looks more like that of the phoenix in the bottom right picture. Isn't it also interesting that Obama was rumoured to be buying the Phoenix Suns NBA basketball team in 2022? I wonder what his dog Sonny would make of that. Century of Progress. A Century of Progress International Exposition, also known as the Chicago World's Fair, was a World's Fair held in the city of Chicago from 1933 to 1934. The fair, registered under the BIE, celebrated the city's centennial. The theme of the fair was technological innovation, and its motto was Science finds, industry applies, man adapts, trumpeting the message that science and American life were wedded. Its architectural symbol was the Skyride, a transporter bridge perpendicular to the shore on which one could ride from one side of the fair to the other. One description of the fair noted that the world, then still mired in the malaise of the Great Depression, could glimpse a happier not too distant future, all driven by innovation in science and technology. Fair visitors saw the latest wonders in rail travel, automobiles, architecture, and even cigarette-smoking robots. The exposition emphasized technology and progress, a utopia or perfect world founded on democracy and manufacturing. A Century of Progress was organized as an Illinois non-profit corporation in January 1928 for the purpose of planning and hosting a World's Fair in Chicago in 1934. City officials designated 3.5 miles of newly reclaimed land along the shore of Lake Michigan between 12th and 39th Streets on the near south side for the fairgrounds. Held on a 427-acre, 1.73 km squared portion of Burnham Park, the $37.5 million exposition was formally opened on May 27, 1933 by U.S. Postmaster General James Farley at a 4-hour ceremony at Soldier Field. The fair's opening night began with a nod to the heavens. Lights were automatically activated when the rays of the star Arcturus were detected. The star was chosen as its light had started its journey at about the time of the previous Chicago World's Fair, the world's Columbian Exposition in 1893. The rays were focused on photoelectric cells in a series of astronomical observatories and then transformed into electrical energy which was transmitted to Chicago. In my recent video entitled The Biblical Harvests, I concluded that Jesus, the first fruits, was represented by the flax harvest. Firstly, because fine linen, or flax, is the righteousness of saints, as we see from Revelation 19 verse 8. Revelation 19 verse 8, and to her was granted that she should be arrayed in fine linen, clean and white, for the fine linen is the righteousness of saints. and secondly because flax burns with good light, creating no odour, and as such it was the preferred option to use as a wick with which to light lamps on Shabbat, according to the Mishnah Shabbat, chapter 2. In summary, I concluded that Jesus, the true light, was represented by flax or cotton wicks, olive oil or beeswax, and the menorah or candles. In contrast, the false light would be made up of electrical wires or metal filaments, even televisions or lasers. This is relevant to the remainder of this presentation. Arcturus, the celestial beam that lit up an expo. Opening a World Expo is always a special moment, as it marks the starting line for an event that will go on to attract millions of visitors from across the world. In 1933, Chicago wanted something electrifying to mark the opening of its Century of Progress Expo, a way to signal to participants and visitors how far the city had come since its establishment 100 years earlier. While focused on technical innovation and the achievements of science and industry, Expo organisers also wanted to pay tribute to history, and notably to Expo 1893, the world's Columbian Exposition that was held in Chicago 40 years earlier. From these two considerations, a unique idea was born, to light up the Expo site using a beam of light that first left a star in 1893. This is where Arcturus, one of the brightest stars in the Northern Hemisphere, plays a role. Astronomers at the time estimated that Arcturus was located 40 light-years from Earth. The light emitted from Arcturus during the world's Columbian Exposition would reach the Earth in 1933, in time for the opening of the Century of Progress Expo. Thus at 9:15 p.m. on the 27th of May 1933, 4 telescopes located in different observatories captured light from Arcturus and focused it onto photoelectric cells. These cells then transformed the light into an electrical current that was amplified and sent to the Expo site on the shores of Lake Michigan. The current lit up the floodlights before a crowd of 30,000 people gathered outside the Hall of Science. The idea is credited to Edwin Frost, the former director of Yerkes Observatory in Wisconsin, which at the time had the world's largest refracting telescope. 3 other telescopes in different locations were also selected to ensure that at least one would detect the light from Arcturus in case of bad weather. On the opening night, however, all telescopes managed to focus on the star's light, and visitors to the Expo could see Arcturus in the clear night sky. With the original opening idea being widely publicized beforehand, the crowds marveled as the lights were switched on with the help of a distant star. The photoelectric cells, which were displayed throughout the Expo, were a shining example of the technological progress of the time and of the Expo's theme, Science Finds, Industry Applies, Man Adapts. Over the next 2 slides, I have included some images taken from the 1933 Expo with captions beneath which I shall read. Firstly, the light of Arcturus display board on the left. When light beams from the star Arcturus were picked up by photoelectric tubes at 4 observatories, signals flashed on this display board on the rostrum of the Hall of Science to show the audience. And the picture on the right, the Hall of Science area at the fair along with the Arcturus sign, far left, and a group of people creating a large star shape on a stage. The star here is a clear match to the 6-pointed star on the flag of Israel, as shown below. I also attached details of a video showing mock child sacrifices to Moloch at the 1933 fair. The comments to that video suggest certain scenes have been removed. Obviously, I am unable to substantiate such claims. However, what is certain at this point is that the capturing of light from Arcturus was one big publicity exercise. As such, the mockery of Arcturus and Boötes suggests I am correct to claim that this constellation represents the White Horse Rider. Only time will tell. Here I have included further images, firstly of the Travel and Transport building, and beneath the Sky Ride attraction. Also present at the fair was the Goodyear blimp, sporting the winged foot logo. The winged foot in the Goodyear logo is meant to depict the winged sandal of the Roman god Mercury, also known as the Greek god Hermes, the messenger of the gods. Mercury was regarded as a fast carrier of good news and was the god of trade and commerce. The Goodyear logo is iconic and light, evoking associations with motion and drawing an analogy with footwear for wheels. I've also included a pamphlet issued by the Arcturus Radio Tube Company from 1933. You can see the Travel and Transport building represented on it. Here things get a little strange. The Arcturus Radio Tube Company was incorporated in Delaware in 1926 as Arcturus Radio Company. They manufactured radio tubes or valves based in Newark, New Jersey, and filed for bankruptcy in 1937. During its existence, the company developed the Coronet series of metal-clad tubes, which are different to those made by RCA and the others. Their tubes used a novel design of glass disc or button which held the leading-in wires in place in what they called a coronet formation. The original Arcturus company, famous for making blue glass tubes, went bankrupt circa early 1940. A coronet is a small crown consisting of ornaments fixed on a metal ring. A coronet differs from other kinds of crowns in that most coronets do not have arches, and from a tiara in that a coronet completely encircles the head, while a tiara does not. The word stems from the French coronet, a diminutive of couronne or crown. We've seen this correlation before, namely in the Arcturus variant shown below. We can, however, see a connection between Arcturus, light, electricity, wires and crowns. Are they telling us what stars really are? In the bottom left is a long exposure photograph of corona discharge on an insulator string of a 500 kV overhead power line. Corona discharges represent a significant power loss for electric utilities. A corona discharge is a process by which a current flows from an electrode with high potential into a neutral fluid, usually air, by ionizing that fluid so as to create a region of plasma around the electrode. The ions generated eventually pass the charge to nearby areas of lower potential or recombine to form neutral gas molecules. So let's return to the fair once again. Starlight beam will open fair. A beam of light that left the star Arcturus about the time of the world's Columbian Exposition of 1893 will set in motion the wheels of the 1933 World's Fair at Chicago. Upon the star, approximately 41 light-years away, will be trained the great 40-inch telescope at the Yerkes Observatory at Williams Bay, Wisconsin. At the proper moment, the image of the star will be allowed to fall upon a photoelectric cell, or electric eye, at the end of the telescope. This will produce an electric impulse that will be amplified and carried over land wires to Chicago, where it will open the exposition by switching on the lights, says Popular Science Monthly. A preliminary demonstration showing how the feat would be accomplished was recently staged at the American Museum of Natural History in New York. The Chicago World Fair opened May 27, 1933. The lights were turned on with energy from the rays of the star Arcturus. The rays were focused on photoelectric cells in a series of astronomical observatories and then transformed into electrical energy, which was transmitted to Chicago. About 3 weeks ago, I received details of a dream from a brother in Christ, Robert. He has kindly allowed me to share it here. At the time, I had no idea that it would become relevant to my investigation into Arcturus. I had a dream a few years ago where I was sitting in an airplane and we were going down the runway trying to take off. I saw a military type of jeep headed straight for us. We couldn't take off because there were wires above us, telephone or electric looking. Right at the last second, before we collided with the jeep, the plane left the ground and we soared upward. As we began to climb, I had a knowing that all of this had to do with Arcturus, and not just the star but the entire constellation. When I woke up, I googled Arcturus and discovered it was the main star in the constellation Boötes. Since then, I've gathered info on this constellation and such, so I was surprised to see another brother speaking of it. So as the 1933 Expo is showing, wires are very relevant to the enemy's interpretation of Arcturus. I will share more on this later. Although Yerkes Observatory was picked for the job, backups were needed in the event of cloudy skies. In the end, telescopes at the University of Illinois Observatory in Urbana Harvard College Observatory, and Allegheny Observatory in Pittsburgh all participated in the grand event. On May 27, 1933, shortly before the appointed time, Century of Progress Fair President Rufus C. Dawes spoke to a crowd of some 30,000 people assembled in the courtyard at the Hall of Science. We recall the great Columbian Exposition of 1893. Never will its beauty be surpassed. Never will there be held an exposition of more lasting value to this city. It was for Chicago a great triumph. As I have mentioned, Yerkes Observatory was chosen as the primary source of light to be transmitted to Chicago. The surname Yerkes is of German origin, meaning son of George. The name is derived from the Greek, which means tiller of the soil or farmer. And the Yerkes motto, translated from the French, is "The end crowns the works." This reminds me of Genesis 4:2. And she again bare his brother Abel, and Abel was a keeper of sheep, but Cain was a tiller of the ground. And moving on to Genesis 4:9. And the Lord said unto Cain, Where is Abel thy brother? And he said, I know not. Am I my brother's keeper? The Barack Obama Foundation is a Chicago-based non-profit organization founded in 2014. It oversees the creation of the Barack Obama Presidential Center, runs the My Brother's Keeper Alliance, a program Barack Obama began while he was president, and operates a scholarship program through the University of Chicago's Harris School of Public Policy. Miscellaneous observations. Firstly, I show here the flag of Chicago, featuring 4 stars. The last 2 stars represent the 2 World Fairs held in Chicago, clearly Masonic affairs. Interesting then that the other stars represent the Great Chicago Fire of 1871 and also Fort Dearborn, built in 1803. Another observation is that in the 1830s, the government of Chicago adopted the motto, City in a Garden. It occurred to me that this may be mockery of Eden. And on the right hand side, I've collected some words that represent 444 in English gematria. Some of the terms I've already used in the course of this presentation. Some are still to come. So wires, 444, we have Lucifer, Masonic, nuclear, energy, photo, heavens, clouds, and graphene, all 444. And finally, in reference to my previous video regarding Homer Simpson preferring the Cowboys to the Broncos, I found this written of Boötes. It is a Greek word meaning a man who tends to a herd of cows, so why not refer to Boötes as the cowboy of the night sky? Okay, I'm adding this slide in, having already completed my video, as I've only just discovered this. As you can see, there is a company called Arcturus Therapeutics, and I have attached a screenshot of their website here. Please pause the video to read the full text if you are so inclined, but the panel in the top right corner gives us a good idea as to its business model. Romans 14:11. For it is written, As I live, saith the Lord, every knee shall bow to me, and every tongue shall confess to God. So it recently occurred to me of Boötes that Boötes begins with a bow, but also Arcturus begins with an arc. Is this why we see so many arches at weddings, entrances, and monuments, etc.? Maybe, but the first thing I thought of was the Arc de Triomphe in Paris, shown in the top right hand corner. I've already shown the Statue of Liberty. Does the Arc de Triomphe hold a secret? The Arc de Triomphe de l'Étoile, the triumphal arch of the star, is one of the most famous monuments in Paris, France, standing at the western edge of the Champs-Élysées at the centre of Place Charles de Gaulle, formerly named Place de l'Étoile, the étoile or star of the juncture formed by its 12 radiating avenues, shown in the bottom right hand corner. The location of the arc and the plaza is shared between 3 arrondissements, 16th, south and west, 17th, north, and 8th, east. In the centre of the slide, we see Axe Historique, which is a line of monuments, buildings and thoroughfares that extends from the centre of Paris, France to the west. It is also known as the Triumphal Way. And worthy of note are the 4 horses situated above the arch. If this is the triumph of France, have we not already seen the triumph of Chicago? And here's another interesting arch story. Teesdale Queen's Jubilee Arch made entirely of sheep fleeces. A unique tribute to the Queen's Jubilee that saw a 7-metre ceremonial arch made entirely of sheep fleeces has turned heads and left many questioning the new structure after it appeared in rural County Durham. Arches were a tradition to mark coronations and jubilees, and were mostly temporary structures built over a wooden framework and wrapped in textile or clad in timber, with decoration drawing from local trades and industry. Steve's Arch uses around 200 fleeces supplied by local farmers and sits within a wildflower meadow. Teesdale holds around 40% of England's wildflower meadows and is a central part of the agricultural stewardship of the landscape. Steve said, "The arch also raises the plight of upland sheep farming and the ever-declining price of wool. Fleece was once the most valuable product of sheep farming." This is particularly interesting to me. My belief is that there are 7 first fruits harvests in the Bible, which I have listed here. I have recently produced a video on the biblical merits of this theory. However, for now, suffice it is to say that if the alive in Christ are represented by the harvest of the sheep fleece, it would make poetic sense that the arch, or Arcturus, be made of sheep fleeces. And taken from another article, a 7-metre tall woolly artwork in Teesdale is seeking to put the struggles of sheep farmers and the future of wool on the agenda. I am about to show you 4 stills from the video of the track Wires by the artist Athlete. There is often hidden meaning in the lyrics and videos of popular music, so I thought I would look into Wires. The song is an account of the lead singer's fear and hope as he bonded with his baby daughter after she suffered a seizure shortly after being born and was rushed to intensive care. However, the lyrics of the song don't seem to match with the visuals. Firstly, the song was filmed at a former secret military test site at Orford Ness in England. Here nuclear weapon testing took place. Such a site was overseen by the UK Atomic Energy Authority. So wires, 444 in gematria, nuclear 444, energy 444. I'm not an expert on gematria, but this seems quite a coincidence. I apologise for the poor picture quality. I couldn't find a better version. I began this presentation with a picture of the 1893 Chicago Ferris wheel. Did this symbolically represent an eye? We have the London Eye more recently, and the Las Vegas Sphere displaying an eye. Here we can see a huge black eye in the background, and also an eye on the skin of the drum. Freemasons, check. So here we can see the physical barriers of a barbed wire fence on either side. But I believe there are more wires, represented by the lightning and electricity travelling through between. The false light. I believe this is the enemy's version of Isaiah 42, verses 6 through 7. I, the Lord, have called thee in righteousness, and will hold thine hand, and will keep thee, and give thee for a covenant of the people, for a light of the Gentiles, to open the blind eyes, to bring out the prisoners from the prison, and them that sit in darkness out of the prison house. And in this slide, we see the eye and the electricity or wires together. And finally, the blinding light, which occurs several times in the video. Is this the twinkling of an eye of 1 Corinthians 15, verses 51 through 52? Behold, I shew you a mystery. We shall not all sleep, but we shall all be changed. In a moment, in the twinkling of an eye, at the last trump, for the trumpet shall sound, and the dead shall be raised incorruptible, and we shall be changed. It is also interesting that at 2 minutes 58, the lead singer seems to experience some kind of a resurrection. And finally, thank you for watching. If you have any further observations or opinions, please leave them in the comment section.